Warm enough over here for you.
It's a little colder than I thought it would be, but you know what? It's been beautiful though. I mean, we had sunshine and all that today, yesterday. You know, I was amazed. We went over to Abbey Road Studios and hung out. We've done a lot of great stuff since we've been here in one day. You know, but it's awesome.
Now I gather that being a singer-songwriter wasn't your initial ambition in life.
Well, I mean, I think it's it's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, I'll be honest. I grew up and went to college and did all that stuff I was supposed to do, and I was just putting off the inevitable, I suppose. And but yeah, I love it. I mean, I love what I do, and I love writing songs and playing those songs. And so I mean, this is my first time here, and I mean, I've never been so excited. I feel like I'm a new artist again.
Well, what sort of prompted you to come over to the UK, over to Europe?
Well, I've just always wanted to do it. It's just something that I've wanted to do forever, and then for some reason or another, it just never happened. You know, I remember the birth of my second girl was 6 years ago. That was we were about to come over for that, and then so anyway, it kind of worked out to when we didn't do it. But I think it's the right time now. So
I hope you enjoy it enough to come again sometime.
Oh, I can't wait. We're going to try to come 3 times a year. So that's what our goal is ultimately. Try June and then maybe the fall.
That'd be brilliant if you do
it would
that.
be great.
And encourage some of your colleagues to come with you as well.
I think it would be great. You know, I mean, I know I've talked to, I know Martina was just over here. I just talked to those guys, and Toby was just here. And so it's really good to, for us to get over here and kind of take it to the world. I like it.
When you first put pen to paper and started writing songs, I found it quite interesting that the first song that you had by an artist wasn't a country artist, was it?
Well, it was Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yeah.
And which was really great because, of course, I grew up listening to him in my house. Of course, my mom and my grandmother was, release me and all. I mean, my God, I mean, I love that song still too. It's a great song, and he's just a great singer. Him and Tom Jones were 2 of the first singers I ever really listened to because my dad was a big fan, and so having the opportunity to meet both of them in my career and hang out and to go to dinner and still look across the table and I just go, wow, I mean, this is Tom Jones, and so it's pretty amazing that I've gotten to do some of these things, but it's. It was just inevitable I come over here. I mean, some of my favorite singer-songwriters are from the UK, so so here we are.
So, your chance to name drop here. Who else has recorded 1 or 2 of your songs, especially from the country music arena?
Well, I mean, I've written with a lot of Sean Colvin, of course, and let's see, Rob Thomas and Gladys Knight, and other genres. But I mean, of course, Tim McGraw and Alan Jackson and Chesney, and he did a lot. Jody Messina and Colin Ray. I mean, there's a lot. I've had a lot of cuts and songs recorded by these guys, but it was ultimately just to sort of pay the bills until I could get a record deal of my own.
Well, where'd you get your ideas from for your songs?
Well, every song I've ever written, I lived that song probably. Whether it was going to see a friend or a breakup. I'm always good at that. Breakups or parties, and I'm all right. A lot of these songs, next 30 years or Paradise. I mean, I think you're thrown. Everybody always asks me if I get writer's block ever, and I'm like, are you kidding? There's no way you can get writer's block in this life because I just think you have so many ideas thrown at you every day, and if you just have that idea and that just catch up for you and. I see that you could write, a lot of songs every day probably if you tried.
I've got a question here from somebody who's wrote into our blog. So you've come all the way from the States. So I've got a question from somebody in Massachusetts, Deb in Massachusetts. She says, do you ever write a song with another artist in mind, or do you write all songs for yourself and only put out the ones to others you're not pleased with? I can't believe that. She asked the question.
No, but I mean, I think that's a good question. It's legitimate for sure, but I bet. I think sometimes you'll write a song and you'll go, well, maybe this isn't for this particular project, this isn't for this album. And, once again, when I first started out, I was just trying to get a record deal like everybody else. But I was a piano player, so they always looked at me like I had 2 heads, so especially in Nashville. So, but once, I started having hits and hit after hit, then folks they went, oh, okay, you're not that bad.
I mean, you mentioned the piano there. It's your instrument of choice. Not the first thing that comes to mind when we were talking country music, though.
Right. Well, I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis was a rock and roll country guy, and Mickey Gilley and Charlie Rich and Millsap, but of course I grew up with guys like that, and as a kid, and of course Elton John and Billy Joel, and Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles. I mean, there's so many of them. Hornsby, and I'm just big fans of anybody that can play the piano. Of course, but it just is my instrument. I love it. And I remember the first time I learned how to play, and I love it to this day, man. I could sit down and play for hours, and just not even, time just flies by.
Well, actually, I mean, let's talk about your latest album, Travelling Circus, the 5th studio album, I think. My favourite track on there actually is Where Have All the Piano's Gone, where you mention people like Billy Joel, Stevie Wonder on there. Do you think the piano is not as popular as it used to be?
No, I don't think it is. I just think it's one of those deals where. I think it's cyclical like anything, and especially in Nashville, it's a guitar town. And I actually wrote a song called "Piano Man in a Guitar Town," but I just think it's all about the songs, and Elton John and Billy Joel and all those guys. I mean, think about the great songs, So hopefully, I don't think the piano's ever going to die. It's been around since Christopher or whoever. So it's just a wonderful instrument, and but usually when people think about rocking out, they don't think about the piano. But I like to I beat a piano to death. So it's my shows are always way active, and I do flips off my piano in my big shows, and so yeah, it's part of what I do.
Travelling Circus for me comes across several songs on there which seem to provide an insight not just to your musical world, but also your personal world. For example, I get the impression John Wayne was a big hero of yours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he as I remember my dad, who passed many years ago. I can still remember, my dad was a big John Wayne westerns, and Eastwood and all these guys, and so as a kid, we would watch Real Bravo, whatever the heck it was, it was all these great. John Wayne was just a man's man, and it just seems like to me that in a disposable world like we live in now. You throw away your razors and your relationships just like the same, but back then everybody stuck together, and relationships lasted forever, and it's just a song about that. It's a real love song, and about being maybe faithful to what maybe that idea's gone. I don't know. I don't have any idea anymore, because don't ask me about relationships. I've blown many of them.
Well, tell me about She's on Her Way.
Well, that's just a song about, when I was 11 and a half years ago, when my daughter was born, Haley, my first one, and I remember walking into the waiting room after she was born, and I was sitting there by myself, and then this older gentleman, he was probably in the 70s, walked in, and I think his daughter or granddaughter or somebody was having a baby, and he said, "So what you in? What you doing?" I said, "Well, we just had a girl," and he goes, "I've got 3 of them." And I started out, he said, that daughter of yours, he said, that's the one woman in this world that you're going to love every day of your life. No, I mean, others you're going to have problems with. He said, but your daughter's always going to be the apple of your eye. And you're going and I just thought it was very poignant. And then years later, I just kind of tapped in and wrote that,
It's a very, very powerful song, that one. The album's not without humour, of course. Bobby with an Eye, is that somebody you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not that good. I could never make that up.
No.
It really is. It's a guy that I grew up with, and he was a big linebacker. I mean, way bigger than me, and he came into a club one night on a ladies' night where ladies drink for free, and he got free drinks because he was dressed up like a lady. And what a smart guy! He's way smarter than I am.
It's a great album, and hopefully there's going to be a few songs from that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We're taken to death to be in the UK right now. And, it's somewhere we've always wanted to go, and we're going to come here a lot more. So hopefully y'all will get used to it.
I hope so. Are you up to Glasgow, I think, and then over to Ireland for the Songwriters Festival?
We are actually playing in Dublin, Belfast this weekend, and then off to Glasgow all this weekend, and then to Germany and Italy. So we're making a little run of it, and hopefully documenting every bit of it, and drinking in every drop of what we're doing.
Phil, thank you very much for taking some time out to talk to us today. It's been great to meet you.
Thank you so much.